Welcome everybody to Ringsiders Wrestling. I am Colin McInnes, today joined by Rivers Johansson, and we have a guest with us today. He is the host of the upcoming show Break the Apocalypse and regular on Wrestling Soup. Today we're joined by Jon Draper. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I don't have a fancy name like you guys have. Your names are so fancy.
I don't know, I think Draper's a pretty cool surname.
Well, it's made up.
I think it's kind of rock and roll to get straight to the point, man. So it's like, don't fuck with me or I'll fuck you up, kind of,
Yeah,
So Rivers Johansson's very hippie-ish,
I wouldn't mess with Jon Draper.
It's an amalgamation. Because John, my real last name is very tricky. So, and my brother doesn't use it, so it's confusing. So right. when I first went on Wrestling Soup, they were just calling me John, and they were like, "Yeah, don't use your real name." And I'm like, "Why?" I was like, "What would be the big deal? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's 2 seconds to someone to figure it out." And like, "Yeah, no one uses like their real name." And I was like, "All right." So I loved Mad Men and I loved Jon Draper, and John Hamm is a Jon like me. I'm a Jon. We're like Jons. It's like a whole weird thing.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know in the UK, but like Jon is usually an abbreviation of Jonathan.
Yeah.
So it's very rare that your name is Jon. Like very, very infrequent do you find that in life. I've only met a handful of them. But my name is actually Jon. So Jon Hamm, the actor, is Jon. So I was like, oh, he's a Jon. I love that character. So I'll just go with Jon Draper. And now it's just like, it's just like everybody's like Draper all the time. So I like Rivers Johansson. Rivers Johansson sounds like a guy whose records I buy.
Well, funny you should say that. He is a musician.
I am. I'm working on. I'm doing pre-production for the Tricky second album at the moment. So I'm hoping to get
the rapper.
Tricky. Yeah, no, I have no idea about rap, man. Yeah. No, the Tricky second album, so to speak. I released a debut album in 2016, which clearly shot off the shelves and just took off to the stratosphere. And
that doesn't mean it's not awesome.
To the point I had to get a regular day job just to ground myself, because it was going to my head. No, it's I'm a blues musician, kind of slide blues, a little bit grunge in there, So I'm working on a second album. I'm hoping to have that out by summer of next year. So
well, definitely.
I'll send you
my email. Yeah, please send me some shit. I would totally listen to it. And I appreciate you guys being patient with me. It's hard during the day because of the time difference. Obviously, is a bit much, but this worked out great. I'm happy to be here.
This is the best time of year really to do it. We've got like a window where there's only 4 hours difference between the UK and New York.
So it's right usually now, 6, right?
Yeah, it's 6:10 here. I'm guessing it's 2:10 there. So usually like if we're doing California interviews, it's like 8 or 9 hours sometimes.
Yeah. Fuck them. We don't care. I'm a New Yorker. We don't care about California. The Dodgers just won the World Series. Like, I don't
you're
care
quite
about
close to us. There's like almost as much difference between you and California as there is us and you.
So, I'm upstate New York. So I'm all the way, like, not as north as to Canada, but I'm a few hours from New York City and I'm only a couple hours from Canada. So I could be in Canada as quick as I could be in New York City.
Is Buffalo upstate New York?
Buffalo is very north. Buffalo is very close to the Canadian border. I'm more like in a college town. Like I'm in the capital of New York. So New York's capital is Albany. That's where the governor is. And there's a lot of colleges. It's a big college area. It's about 170 miles from New York City.
Right. Okay. My New York knowledge is based solely off wrestling.
Oh, wow.
From I think I know most of the states in America based on wrestlers' entrances. Like, I always know the cities and the states based on like where the wrestler's from. It kind of just sticks in your head. And then I follow quite a bit of hockey as well, so I know about.
Oh, do you really? Okay.
Yeah. So. But I follow Vancouver Canucks, which is usually not a good thing.
Now you have a a superhero backdrop behind your head there? I keep seeing some superheroes.
Got one little poster up here. Yeah.
Oh, it's so tiny.
Just
it's like
so
a
it's
tiny
not
little
a
poster.
Completely white background.
Okay.
I do have all these posters here.
Oh snap! Let me see that.
But
you learned out. Okay.
I can't rest my laptop anything to actually look this way. So you're stuck with this one boring poster in the back.
I thought I saw Superman for a second. I'm like, he's talking. I'm like, I think I see Superman behind his ear. Like, what the hell is going on over there?
It is Superman, yeah.
I have multiple. I have treadmills behind me. That's why I put up the backdrop. This is where
like a fancy digital background which you've put in there, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Well, we got to keep pushing this
promote your
show. We
Yeah.
have to keep we're just not. The show is. I literally get a text message or a DM every day of somebody going, "You have a show?" And I'm like, "Fuck, this has been doing this for like 2 months." Like, you know what I mean? It's just like it's very hard to get the connection for people, and I understand it because it's just one person doing something for so long.
Yeah.
But I try to share it as much as I can. It's like I'm people are listening to it. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's like it's nothing compared to what the soup does, obviously. But like it's very strange that people still haven't made the connection yet. And I did a show with my brother a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I got a lot of messages. People are like, I didn't know John has his own show." I'm like, "Yeah, dude. Like, what do I have to do? Like, do I have to just start posting nudes or something?" Which maybe I will. It won't be of me, but I'll post nudes.
Yeah. It's a grind, isn't it? When you're starting a new show, like even if you do have the following already, it's like you're starting again from scratch sometimes. And we don't have a massive following, I'll be honest, but the people who do listen are like regular listeners.
Yeah,
and that's what we really ask for.
Yeah, that's the best thing. I mean, like, you know, Soup has this huge global world audience, and like wrestlers listen to it, and Andrew Yang listens to it. Or listen, he really did, and some pretty well-known people like in the business listen to it. So it's like, hey, I'm doing this show and I just make jokes every week. Do you want to listen to it? Like, please, can you please listen to it? I do jokes. I make a lot of jokes. I say a lot of funny shit. So hopefully people will check it out. It's called Break the Apocalypse. It's free. It's about an hour and change every week. It comes out every Friday night. And then for Patreon, the full episode where we really get a little crazy. But I think we've only done 8 shows. I'm happy. I love who I'm doing the shows with, Shaheen from Nuclear Heat. He does all the graphics that you've probably seen a zillion times on Wrestlers and on Wrestling Soup and Don Tony and for this show, and B-Show Brian, who also does a horror podcast. He's like a horror enthusiast. So it's like I got like these 2 great young dudes who I'm very, very close with, and you know, they let me just ramble, you know, which is a tough thing to put up with, which you guys are going to learn very quick.
What's it been like going from speaking about primarily wrestling to getting the chance to speak about something completely different? Because we find that we ramble so much about wrestling. People are like, do you actually like wrestling? Like,
yeah, maybe I get asked. You know, I'm asked that so much, and and my brother Kevin probably gets asked that too. It's hard, you know. If I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, like, I know you're familiar with Wrestling Soup, obviously, but when we did a few months ago, when we did the Speaking Out show, it just had a really, I just had a really bad effect on me. Like, I got very upset about it because I have teenage daughters. And like, I am not some big, as you've been listening to me, I'm not some big left-leaning liberal social justice guy. I've been called pretty much everything opposite of that.
Yeah.
But when Mish was reading those stories, and we were talking about it all day that day before we went on the air, the 3 of us got very upset, like as men, as wrestling fans, as people. And it just impacted me very differently, you know, than I thought it would. And then after we did the show, I was just like, I don't know if I want to talk about wrestling anymore. Like, it's not that I don't want to talk about wrestling, but it's like, I don't know. I can't make that the only thing that I connect with people on anymore because I'm finding so much of what I'm learning about and the people in the business so gross and so like disgusting.
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard. And it's not, I don't want to paint everybody with that brush. And where you guys live, this was a much bigger deal where you live. This was in your backyard.
I'll be completely honest.
Well, we Callum, myself, and Jamie actually sat around and listened to that Wrestling Soup show on the night that it came out. You know, it was a good 3-hour show, I think. Something close.
It wasn't very fun.
We were feeling very much the same way as you guys. We were just so utterly deflated. In fact, did he take a month out of doing wrestling podcasting?
Yeah,
because you were so kind of didn't want to do it.
I stopped doing this podcast for about a month or 2, just because I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't justify to myself that like I'm passionate about wrestling, but the passion wasn't there to speak about it. And I've completely fallen out of love with British wrestling based on what happened because like you said, most of it was here, and I can't look at. I want to enjoy British wrestling, but I just can't now, and I think that's some permanent damage. I'm okay with the US Indies. I can watch a bit of that in WWE. But I've still got like trust issues when it comes to trusting wrestlers that I'm supporting because it's like, well, I don't know who I can trust and not anymore. And I know it's a very selfish mentality, but
no, it's not. It's a human mentality. I don't think what you're saying is selfish at all. Like I don't want to talk too much about it because a lot of it's very private stuff between me and most guys. But like there was a phone call with with me and someone else from the show, and I just sat on my back porch for like an hour and a half, and we were both almost in tears because it was just how do we not, because the thing I think what really bothered me the most was how little it made a difference, to be honest with you. I thought everything was going to change. I remember sitting with my wife and my daughters, like, and I'm like, yeah, I don't even know, like, if we're going to even, like, I think people are going to go to jail. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then, like, nothing happens.
Nothing.
And I'm just like, wow, okay, well, I'm not going to help you facilitate, basically like a show like Wrestling Soup. If you're a wrestler, even if we don't like you, if you're in the business, you're benefiting from our existence in a very big way.
Yeah.
You are. I mean, yeah, you're providing material for us, but as you've noticed from listening to Soup, we were never short on material. Like we could talk about it. We could talk about, like, a poop knife for 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, and I don't want to talk again. It was such a personal thing, but Joey, working in the industry, knew people on that list. Like he knew them. They weren't abstract people that we watch on television or that we pay money to go see. And now he's like, now I got to fucking, like, I like, that was really hard for him. And, I don't have that relationship with wrestlers. I have it with a lot of musicians. I have it with some actors. I have it with some comedians. But people like me and Mish, we don't know wrestlers like well, and it was painful. So like at that point, I knew I wanted to get that taste out of my mouth. And that's when the idea started that I would just go and do Break the Apocalypse. And, I'm not done with wrestling forever, but I don't want it to be how I'm not presenting that to people every week. Like, it's just not something I want to do.
If you put all of your energy into one thing and then that one thing becomes something that you don't enjoy anymore, you won't have anything left to enjoy. Like,
well, now you sound like one of my divorce lawyers.
Yeah. Your divorce lawyer is true.
Clearly, you've never been divorced, young man.
No, but you can't put all your energy into one thing, is what I'm trying to say. And like, wrestling does take up a lot of energy. There's a lot of hours of wrestling to watch. There's a lot of complaining to do online about it. So it's good that you're making the decision to do something else, like Break the Apocalypse. And just from what I've heard about it, it sounds right up my street. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I'm definitely going to make an effort.
Well, now you hurt my feelings. Because
I apologize, John. But can you just
anyway, Rivers? Go ahead, Rivers. What?
I've listened to all 8 episodes so far.
Rivers is like, I've heard everything. Look, I've even heard the shows that don't exist.
I haven't got onto the Patreon yet, but I will. I promise. So
trouble
is with me, my day job pays
what you're
terrible.
saying makes a lot of sense. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. And, there's a lot of talk. I'm sure this wouldn't surprise you, but there's definitely a possibility of me and my brother maybe going in the new year, doing something. It's been talked about everywhere. Everyone really wants that to happen. We want it to happen. But, if we did do that, I would have to be on a big level thing. Like because it's hard for Kevin, because Kevin has this identity in this establishment with that show for how many years? My gosh. Yeah. And like Wrestling Soup, I was a guest in the house of Wrestling Soup. It was my show by proxy of them allowing it to be my show. Kevin has his, whole, career with Don Tony essentially, and going back to phone calls and going back to before the internet. So it's a much bigger risk for Kevin than it would be for me. If we said, hey, we're going to start this brothers podcast and it's going to be huge and we're going to do wrestling, we're going to cover pay-per-views and we're going to have guests and we're going to have wrestlers. Yeah, that's awesome. But like, that would mean that Kevin is no longer on his other show. That would mean that I'm never going back to Wrestling Soup. So it's just, I don't know if that's going to happen. We really need to see what happens also with COVID, with wrestling. Is that even a possibility? But it's very real. It's a real thing. It's not something that I think would surprise you guys if you heard about it in a few months. You'd be like, well, of course they're going to do that. Like, you know what I mean? That makes total sense. Yeah. So we'll see if that happens in 2021.
That would be nice. I'd love to have a show with you and Kevin Castle doing your thing. That'd be great. So I'd love that.
Yeah,
sure.
again, we've talked about it. People ask us about it all the time, but he's got his whole world. That's his whole world. I mean, like, he built that world. I didn't build Wrestling Soup.
Yeah.
I fell into it backwards, like, with a few jokes and a couple of impressions. Kevin helped build that. So, to ask a guy to give all that up to go do something with me, it just seems a little selfish on my part. But he is my brother, so the hell with it. He has to do it if I ask him, I guess. I don't know.
Is Kevin still doing Don Tony's show, or is he doing his own thing now?
He's still a part of that show, but most of his stuff is on Patreon. But he's still in that. That's his identity. That's who he is.
Yeah. And he's still doing the Castle Chronicles, isn't it, on Patreon?
Chronicles? He's doing his Castle Chronicles. He has his own shows there. And if anybody doesn't know, we're talking about Kevin Castle from the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show. That is my biblical birth brother. We're actual brothers.
So with Break the Apocalypse, for someone like myself who hasn't checked it out yet, I'm sorry.
You keep turning that knife.
Just keep pushing it in there, turning it.
You're making me feel bad about myself. But go ahead, sure. I feel great. Thank you.
Someone who hasn't checked it out yet, what's the general idea behind Break the Apocalypse? Because just judging by the cool fancy work you've got in the background there, I mean, it looks like something I'd love. But just through it.
Yeah, so Shaheen and Brian I've known for a while. I know them through Wrestling Soup, obviously. But Shaheen has his own podcast, but he's really a graphic designer, and he's produced shows. He's done so many. There's no way you haven't seen graphics he's done. It's just not possible in wrestling. He also does a lot of conventions and works a lot of indies. He's got a lot of contracts with indie people that he does their graphics. And Brian had his own wrestling podcast for a while, but he also had a horror podcast, and him and I have been talking for years. So, I guess around prior to that speaking out circumstance, there was always the idea in the back of my mind that I wanted to do like a comedy show. And when I say a comedy show, I don't mean like, balloon animals and like Why Did the Chicken Cross the Road? I mean like, a light show, a very irreverent show, where we talk about anything but that, which is half of what Soup is. But Soup, really, people come to Soup for wrestling news. People come to Soup for there's so many people that would send me things, go, I don't watch wrestling, I only know about wrestling my wrestling only comes from the show. Like, I stopped watching months ago. So it's like, we can't, I only know about the pay-per-views from the pay-per-view recaps. I only know about the weekly recaps or whatever. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I don't listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts. I just don't. I listened to a few of them, but I've, having been on one for so long, and my brother's show, and it's just, it's exhausting sometimes. I'm just gonna be honest, but there's only so many you can listen to. So, but I listen to a lot of comedians, and I listen to a lot of pundits, like political people, on both sides of the aisle. I like to get my knowledge from everywhere.
Same, yeah.
I do. I mean, if I showed you my phone and my podcast, you'll see like Bridget Fettisay and Joe Rogan, but you'll see like Tim Pool, but you'll see Jimmy Dore, and then you'll see Cumtown, and then it's just like, and then you'll see like, Necromaniacs, my brother's horror podcast. So, and Sam Harris, so I like to get my information from everywhere, because I'm not on a team. I'm on my team. My team is, I take ideas from everybody, and music from everybody, and culture from everything, and I put it in my head, and I take what I like from it, and I move the hell on. So, but I was so immersed in listening to like Tim Dillon and Bridget Fettisay and Joe Rogan, and I was just like, I feel like we kind of already do those shows in a lot of ways, and I've had this conversation with Joey Numbers, and I'm like, I feel like we're already on Cumtown. It's just Cumtown of wrestling. But there's so many things that you can, when you're covering wrestling, you can't incorporate everything in the world in. So Break the Apocalypse was basically like, well, look, the world that kind of already ended, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, the world's over, everything sucks. So let's just try to make fun of as much as we can, because we can't do anything else. So it's like a weekly look. Like, we're going to go tomorrow when we record. Shaheen lives near West Philadelphia. West Philadelphia is a war zone right now. Like, he's literally, and Shaheen is an immigrant from another country that he left because it was a war zone, and he moved to this country, and now he finds himself driving through like a literal war zone. I mean, like, it's just, how do you tell someone from Iran that, like, when someone who was born and raised in Iran comes to America and then is living here, and it's like, wow, it's more racist here and more oppressive here than it was when I lived in Iran.
Yeah.
And it's just, so I want him to have that voice. Brian brings so much to the table in terms of his knowledge, not only about wrestling, but about horror movies and culture. And they're a lot younger than me, which everybody is. Obviously, you guys look at me and you're like, well, yeah, duh, we're all younger than you. The whole world's younger than me. I'm like Methuselah. But so I want those views, and I wanted to I wanted to kind of be less of a passenger and more of somebody who drives the ship. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with being a passenger on a successful show, but it's very different. It's a very different. They were basically like, look, you drive the boat. We want to be on the boat. And I'm like, yeah, I want you on the boat. They're like, okay, you can drive the boat. And I was like, awesome, I'll drive the boat. So I drive the boat, and I wouldn't have a boat if it wasn't for them. So it's really more about like being able to kind of stay out of wrestling for the most part, and still do things that make people laugh and make people think and talk about music. And that's what we really do. We talk about everything. Like we have a list of topics and we hit those topics. And it's a pretty irreverent show. I mean, I would be honest. It's probably pretty offensive. I mean, it's offensive because people are so touchy. I don't think it's really offensive. We're not trying to be offensive. It's just, it's a pretty racist show. That's what people have come back and told me. It's very racist.
Changed. Yeah. What being offensive has changed drastically. Like,
yeah,
I'm sure it's not actually offensive, but nowadays you'll find somebody who will say it is, no matter what it is you're saying. So
yeah, and that's a big part of wrestling. And I was hitting that brick wall. You guys know, listening to the Soup is what Wrestling Soup is just like. You can't really criticize anybody. I mean, you can't even things that are sort of openly, like even speaking out. I don't want to. I can't. I'm sorry to keep coming back to it, but if you think that everyone thought that was a great show and everyone thought it was wonderful that we talked about it, that's not the case. There were people that were not into it. Like they let me know. They were small. It was a minority, but there are people like, why are you guys doing this? Like, why are you guys defending? Like, why are you guys siding? Oh, now you guys too. And I'm just like, wow. It's like, really, this is where we are now. It's just like, geez, you can't even have like a nuanced opinion.
Yeah.
So it's a nuanced. It's a comedy show where we talk about very relevant topics that week, very directly, without really any filter. The show, some stuff has had to be edited. I'm not going to lie. We had to edit a few things out. But because sometimes I'll name a person in an environment and I didn't get that person's permission. So it's very funny because like I talked about somebody that involved me like in like this cocaine thing, and I'm not a drug user, at all. But like this is like in my 20s. And then I realized I just literally said a bunch of people's names and cocaine without even thinking twice about, like, you know what I mean? It was just like,
yeah.
And so had to buy cocaine, and I literally said this person's name, and I was like, I called Brian up. I go, yeah, you got to take that name out, dude. And he was like, yeah, I got to listen to the show. He goes, you do that a few times. So I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then I had a friend who's pretty famous now, and this is how abstractly I have to talk about him, but he's famous in the sports world. And he had done something really like that today. If he did it today, he probably would go to jail. And I'm struggling to make sure did I mention his name? Did I not mention his name? And even though this was the 80s or something. And it's just like that kind of a show where it's just like, oh, I remember in 92, a friend of mine killed a guy. Yeah. Unbelievable, right? Todd killed a guy. Hey, Todd, remember when you killed that guy? And then like Shaheen and Brian would be like, dude, you said he killed a guy. Like, I'm like, well, he did kill the guy. I mean, like, the guy is dead. Like there's a few things I won't like. I talk about my like shit with my kids, and but I talk about it very directly, and like there's really no filter. The only time there's a filter is if there's if I feel like somebody could like come after me or something like that legally. But other than that, like if you did something stupid and I know about it, I'm probably going to talk about it on the show.
So there's been a bit of a learning curve, whereas like when you're the guest, obviously someone else will edit, or you won't go into stuff like that anyway. But when you're the actual host of the show and you've got you're driving it, obviously you're going to say things which you don't realize, like, oh, I can't say this stuff because I can. We've had to do that before where we've said something and then afterwards we've all just gone, should we edit that bit out? Like that's we're going to get cancelled if we say that.
in the culture these days, you find yourself kind of jumping through hoops saying like, oh, is that okay to say that? Is it okay to say this? So I think what you're doing, John, with Break the Apocalypse it's kind of like it harkens back to kind of old school radio show hosts, like a Howard Stern, if you will. For
it's
lack
funny.
of
Somebody said that. People are saying that.
So I think your style is going to come back into fashion in a big bad way, because I think people have had enough of the quote unquote snowflake culture, so to speak. So
yeah. I just did a music podcast. It's not coming out for a little bit, but when it comes out, I'll send you guys a link, because I don't really talk about my music career that much because it's just such a long time ago. But I remember the guy when he asked me to do it. I know him, I knew him a little bit, and he said, I'm listening to Break the Apocalypse. It reminds me of Howard Stern in like the 90s. And I was like, what a compliment. I mean, it's like, wow. And he really went there. He goes, I'm talking about like the Artie Lang, like late 90s Howard Stern, like right before he goes to Sirius. I was like, holy crap. I was like, yeah, because that's what I liked. And that was a big part of my life, which aside from wanting to sing or do anything else, I love that. Like, I just love the fearlessness of it. And this is why I always got in a little bit of trouble, like even on the Soup, with when we would make fun of these other like wrestling podcasters who are just very vanilla. Everybody's great. This guy's great. That match was great. The paper was great. And I'm just like, no, it wasn't. Like, it wasn't. Like, why would you? Like, you're lying. Like, I would rather be less known and have the people that know who we are believe everything I say because I have credibility than be very, very well known and just be like, wasn't that great? Isn't he great? Isn't Alexa Bliss amazing? She's like amazing. And I'm just like, no.
The other day, there's so many, there must be 100,000 wrestling podcasts on Twitter. Like, a new one popping up every day, which is fine. We're one of them. But we used to do that thing where we'd start a wrestling podcast and we reviewed every show in detail, down to like how the match went. And then I was like, well, why is no one listening to this? And I was like, well,
nobody cares.
Because they saw the match already. They saw the match.
Yeah. And they don't care. They don't give a shit.
They don't care. They really don't. And that's the thing. And that's what I loved about the Soup. Like, that's what attracted me to this show. Was I felt I was listening to a comedy show. Like, I didn't really think I forgot, like, we were talking about wrestling. And even long before I was on the show, I listened to the show. So, and that's what I tried to Break the Apocalypse is just like, I guarantee you, if you listen to a full episode on Patreon, there is literally something in those 6 or 7 topics that you go, I'm so glad they talked about that. I'm so glad they talked about that. Maybe there's 3 things in there that you really like. You know what I mean? Like, we try to mix it up too. It's, we'll whatever's topical right now is what we're going to talk about. I especially like tomorrow, I'm sure Shaheen actually has like video footage of the riots and stuff like that. So you might think that that's not funny, but there's something funny in everything. Like, there's some way to lightheartedly talk about something without beating people over the head with a political view. And to be honest, our politics are all over the place. Like, we really are all over the place. It's not a cut and dry thing like, oh, this show is anti this or this show is anti that. It's not. I don't think anybody is anti really anything. I think we're pro talking.
Most people realistically are all over the place. They just pretend that they're one or the other because they feel like they have to. So the fact that you're saying you've got a show where you're not left, right, center, good, bad, whatever, it's just a bit of everything, and you'll probably find something you enjoy when listening to it, then that's great. That's the kind of podcast I want to listen to. In fact, I've just subscribed now on iTunes.
Oh, excellent. I appreciate it. And like I said, it's very irreverent. Like, there's no, like, I remember in the beginning, I can't remember if it was Brian or Shaheen, and I think one of them said to me, he's like, so you're going to curse or something like that. I forget it was in an abstract way. And I was just like, well, we can never get monetized on YouTube. And I was like, well, fuck that. I'm totally fine with that. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not, I would rather talk the way I talk to people like a real person than fake it to get like $7. I mean, like, are you serious? Like, what the, like, the money's nice, but like, really? Like, I don't care. I don't want to censor myself. I'll censor myself from a legal standpoint to not get sued by somebody saying they bought cocaine, but I'm not going to censor myself and not call somebody a bitch who's being a fucking bitch. Like, I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? So, it would be nice to get that YouTube money. I'll tell you that. But I see other people did that, and I went, not for me. That's not who I am. I don't think people who met me like at the events we've done or whatever, I think when they met me, they immediately knew that the person they listened to and me were the same person.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I would tell you something real funny. Like we did with last year Mania, before this year, when we did the big show with that in Brooklyn. I show up to the place, and I know this place. I hang out in this place, and I'm all by myself. And I was just with Joey and Mish all day, and I was meeting them. And there's all these people outside, and I just walk up, and as soon as I walk up to the door, all of a sudden I hear these people go, "Yo, there's Draper. Draper's right over there. He's right there. Yo, there's Draper." And I don't even turn my head because I'm like, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, right? And it took everybody about 3 seconds to know who I was from the time I walked in the door, right? You know, from very little. I mean, it's not like Wrestling Soup's a visual show. Within everybody that met me there or met me in Chicago or met me whatever was always said, "You're exactly the way you are on the show." Like there's no difference. Like if you met me tomorrow, you'd be like, "Yep, that's the guy I talked to." Like, you know what I mean? And I always feel like entertainment's not really like that. Like, you know, I've met a lot of people that are quite famous and they are not the people that I thought they would be.
Yeah.
And wrestling, I can tell you wrestling's not like that at all.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Rivers, did I cut you off, man? I apologize.
No, I was going to say, like, I'm glad that you didn't kind of go for the YouTube money, because in the debut episode of Break the Apocalypse, when you're talking about big old frog dicks, we wouldn't have got that absolute gem of a thread.
There's a lot of penis, there's a lot of dicks, a lot of cocaine. And it's funny too, because I never was like a cocaine guy, but I was surrounded as a musician, like touring musician, like, oh my God, like I was just surrounded by like drugs and like women, and it's just like, so I talk about all those things abstractly, but because they're not a part of my life, but they were in my life. So it's like, I just can't imagine, like, and there's people, look, you guys know, there's people doing very vanilla shows that are very successful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's people who toe the line who are very profitable.
I can think of a really, really big British wrestling show that's very popular on YouTube, who are exceptionally vanilla, and they rake in all the money.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's great for them if they could sleep at night. I would not be able to sleep at night if I had to tell you, you know, every night, like, why, you know, Joey Janela is the greatest thing that's ever existed. Like, I couldn't do that, like, unless I really like Joey. I don't dislike Joey, but I'm just saying, like, I can't. I almost feel like everybody's advertising should be to work for either WWE or AEW. That's it. Yeah. Everybody, and we've been saying, and you guys know from listening to, we've been saying this forever. It's like almost everybody is auditioning. It's an audition. It's not a podcast. It's like, listen to me talk about how Seth Rollins has reinvented himself as the most significant heel in the industry. And they're praying. They're praying that somebody hears that and goes.
They just want, they want that retweet as well, don't they? They want that like or the retweet or the comment on Twitter. That interaction. That's all they're saying it for, is the interaction.
Well, speaking of interaction on Twitter, I am now the king because Barry Horowitz follows me on Twitter. So I don't care about anything anymore.
Hasn't that been your goal, though? I feel like that's been your goal for a while.
Let's see that T-shirt.
It has, yeah. Oh, this T-shirt, this Barry Horowitz officially merchandise T-shirt right here.
Yeah, is that like you're now? Are you constantly talking about Barry Horowitz on Twitter? Or am I making that up?
No, that'll be me. I'm trying to get him over. I want him in the Hall of Fame. You know, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. So
wow, you know, I'm young enough. Like, he was the main, one of the main jobbers of my lifetime. Like, you know, like he was like
the same here. I was 15 years old when they gave him that little push in the summer of '95. I was about 15 years old then.
Oh,
so
wow.
And I always really liked him. You know, I was always like a big fan of like the underdog guys. You know, so when they finally put him over, I didn't really know what putting over was back then. I was 15. I was just watching wrestling because I love wrestling, you know. But when they finally kind of put him over and they gave him that little run, I was just like, yeah, cool. And then he just disappeared, and I was like, where the hell's Barry Horowitz? And then, like, you know, 25 years later, you know, it's crazy, you know.
Yeah, he was a main guy on cards long before, like, when they gave him that little push there. That was he was on a lot. I saw him probably in the Garden in the early 80s, probably. I was like 10 or 11, but I remember. Kevin would probably know a lot more about that than I do. But that's an interesting, to have a Barry Horowitz fetish is, I mean, you're not going to have a lot of competition. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
you
true.
know,
That's true. Yeah.
you're not. You're not. It's not like you're gonna have to
I
fight
never looked at
somebody.
it as a fetish, but now you mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah.
Well,
This
I
is
think,
getting
well,
straight
fetish,
up
well,
to
see,
me.
but I'm the comedian. Fetish is funnier. That's why we went to the word fetish. It's not really a fetish.
It's a fetish.
He's going, yeah, it's a fetish.
You're not around him when we're at the pub and,
Oh,
talking about Barry Horowitz for 5 hours.
I
Yeah.
would love to be around you guys at the pub. Trust me. I would
He's the
love,
only
love.
person in the world to own that T-shirt as well. That's one of a kind.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Dude, you're
At the moment.
killing me right now. Oh my God. You have a Barry Horowitz fetish. Wow.
I just want to see the guy in the Hall of Fame because there's people that are far less deserving than him in the Hall of Fame, And,
Yeah,
he
like
put
most
people
of the
up
Hall of
strong,
Fame.
man.
Like most of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And he was great at his job. Great worker.
Yep. Great worker. And he's actually a really nice guy as well in real life, isn't he? He's just really down to earth. And he deserves that Hall of Fame spot. So use the hashtag Horowitz wins and let's get Barry in the Hall of Fame.
Let's get him over again.
But yeah, John, before we start wrapping things up, one, it's been great talking to you because, like I said, we're big fans of your work. I'm now subscribed to Break the Apocalypse, so I will be checking that out. Is there anything else that you've got going on in your life that you're wanting to promote, or have we pretty much discussed it all in this episode?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I honestly don't know. It's hold on one second, guys. If you could just give me a second here. For some reason, the Discord is starting, and I don't know why. So I'm trying to get that to stop.
I hate Discord.
What is a Discord? Is that like a website or something? What is that?
Where you
Social media?
People, for games.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. Can you hear me?
No worries. Yeah, I can hear you.
So
Yep.
the craziest thing just happened. Like all of a sudden, Wrestling Soup started in my headphones, and I couldn't stop it.
I wondered why you looked so confused.
Yeah, I just didn't understand it. I'm like, why is Joey talking? And I'm just like, oh, because I think they're recording a Frank and Gus, and I'm normally not on the air at this point. So it's just like, oh,
Right.
that's weird.
Right.
That's so strange. That is the strange. I swear to God, because I'm sure the look on my face was like horror.
Yeah,
I'm like, how is
terrified.
this? Like, I don't even understand. That show's not even on Skype, but my headset is like my computer is automatically to the Discord.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny because I know you haven't heard this show, but give me 1 second. I'm gonna blow my computer back up here. It's one of the things I really want to do with the show going forward is basically I would like to bring people in to talk about different things. One of the things I loved about doing Wrestling Soup was I got to talk to people who, about things other than wrestling, that I only know from wrestling, which has always been really cool. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. I didn't know a lot, music was a big thing from the show, talking to other people on other podcasts. So I always enjoyed that, getting to know things about people, even though you know them through wrestling, but not wrestling related.
I couldn't agree more. Even down to this conversation for us, speaking to you, we've maybe spoken about wrestling for half the time, but the rest of it's just been finding about yourself and what you're doing other than wrestling.
Well, if you have anything you want to talk about wrestling, I'd love to talk to you about it. That's for sure. Because I haven't talked about wrestling in a while.
This is kind of what I'm saying. As the show progresses for us, we're actually finding the best conversations we have are where we speak about wrestling less, but with wrestlers. So it's like finding out their other interests, what they enjoy other than wrestling. And we'll throw a bit of wrestling in there, but like you said, you don't always have to talk about wrestling. Some of the best ones are where you don't even mention it. So,
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's really, podcasting is so amazing because it incorporates the best things about radio and video and free speech in a lot of ways. So that's, it's nice to have that outlet. It's still such a new medium. You know what I mean? And it's, yeah, everybody has a podcast, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure. But it's nice that everybody has a podcast. But that's cool. That's the cool thing about it, is that everybody has a podcast. You know, I'm sure most of the people that listen to podcasts have podcasts. You know, so, you know, it's just, I never understood the things like, oh, everybody's got a podcast. I'm like, well, yeah, and everybody's got feelings, and everybody's got a brain, and everybody's got a heart, and everybody's got to eat, and everybody's got to get a job, and everybody's got to get an apartment. Like, you know, it's like why is that such a bad thing that everybody's got a podcast? I think that that's awesome, because how else would they know who you are? Like, I never understood people getting pissy with, oh, it seems there's 5,000 wrestling podcasts. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good thing. That means the really good ones, everyone's going to listen to, right? You know, and I never understood that. I never was that person. It was just, you know, there's too many podcasts. And I'm like, no, there's too many bad ones, just like anything else, right? Isn't there a lot of bad bars? Isn't there a lot of bad restaurants and pubs by you that you don't like? Isn't there a lot of bad clothing stores? But there's good ones that you like, right? So, you know, that's the thing. And with Break the Apocalypse, what I want is, I want people, if they discover it through wrestling, that you know, when it's not there, they're still interested in it, because it piques other interests that they have, like horror movies, like music, like cocaine, like strippers, like hookers, like adultery, like you know, like beating people up, like you know, hiding a body. Where else are you going to hear about hiding a body? Come on.
Yeah. So it's a variety show, basically.
Well, it's all true, and that's the other thing too. I found that a lot of podcasts I listen to, when people talk about themselves in like third person or whatever, and I'm just like, that didn't happen. That's a fake story. Like, I could tell in 2 seconds. I swear to God. Most of the stories I make up about myself are so terrible. Like, why would I would make up a story about me saving a family of orphans in a burning building. You know, not, you know, I accidentally missed the toilet and had diarrhea because the toilet was bad, so I shat all over the floor. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, which, by the way, is a great story. It's a great story because it was in a public place. I mean, it was like, you know, but you know, tell those stories. I want to hear those stories. I don't want to hear about, I gave a homeless person my coat and my sneakers and I took pictures of it. Here, you want to see the picture?
I recorded it all.
I recorded
on YouTube.
I beat up a Nazi.
I do have that story. John, I do have that story. One. This is, maybe I was in my early 20s, so about 18 years ago. I was out. I got absolutely hammered. I thought I needed to take a shit.
I'm already liking the story.
I thought I needed to take a shit. Sat down on the loo, and then ended up just throwing up in my lap. So, like, I had puke all over my cock and balls. Yeah,
I had I had the norovirus. I had that. I actually happened to me.
Oh, norovirus.
Yeah, the norovirus.
Right.
Yeah, norovirus. But I actually, like, I think I told the story on Global Balding. Like, I was in a studio and I was rehearsing with my band. We were going on the road, and we were in there for like 5 hours. And the bathroom was so disgusting, and you weren't allowed to like sit on the toilet. Like, it was like, you just pee. That's it. If you got to take a dump, you got to go somewhere else. There was like a no dumping sign. The toilet looked like the Train Spotting toilet. Like, it was literally like that toilet. And I had to go so bad that I was like, oh, I'll just stand over it, right? I'll just stand directly over it, right? But I didn't want to look. So I'm standing over what I think is the toilet, but now I have like diarrhea, like for like mountains of it. And I'm thinking, oh, thank God, like I did this, right? But I'm in front of the toilet and I missed the toilet completely, and it's all over the floor in between my legs, right? And there's no cleaning supplies in this bathroom, and I have my whole band's here and like other people, and I'm like, I have to get on my hands and knees and take toilet water from like a little cup and throw it on the floor. And I'm cleaning the bathroom for like 45 minutes on my hands and knees, like, because I missed the toilet. And like, they must have been working on the song forever, because no one even noticed I wasn't in there. And then somebody had to pee, and like, it was a tile floor, like a tiny black and white tile floor. I'll never forget this for all my life. And I'm scrubbing it with a sponge that the guy probably bought 15 years earlier, like a big industrial sponge. And I'm taking the water from the toilet, and it smells really bad. And there's like no escape. There's just no escape. And I literally just got on my hand and scrubbed this toilet, like scrubbed the floor, like with my hands. I was like, it was just one of the most vile moments of my entire life. Like, honestly.
Did anyone see you doing it?
No.
No, good.
But I told them all. because they were like, why does the floor look so clean? I'm like, why does the floor look so clean? Because I shit all over the floor. And they were like, no, you didn't. I go, I swear to God, this totally happened in this great studio. Like, I know you guys know Typo Negative.
Yeah.
Yes.
The band Typo Negative.
Yeah.
We're the only other band in this studio with them. This is like 2000, and like all their road cases are in the room. And my guitar player ran, like when they would come to rehearse at like midnight to like 6 a.m. So we would rehearse from like 7 p.m. to midnight. And this is like 10 o'clock. And I know Type O is coming in. So I got to clean this floor because Pete Steele is a big, scary man.
He's the dude with long black hair, right?
Yeah, he was like 6'6". He was a horrifyingly scary human being. I mean, and these guys are going to fucking kill me. Like if God forbid, thank God I had the time. And I spent the floor hadn't been cleaned maybe in years in this bathroom. Because it was like a private studio, like the only one band used it. And I would think in the back of my head, I was like, Typo Negative's coming in here at like midnight. I got to clean this fucking bathroom. Like I scrubbed the floor, like my hands and like the dirt, it's all over the sleeves of my clothes and my knees. No. And I just didn't know what to do. I'll never forget. What that?
You did the right thing.
Well, you know what's funny? Somebody told me, like, when I told them the story, I go, not for nothing, I would have probably just went home and pretended like I didn't do it.
That's always an option.
Can you imagine, like, just like, hey, like the singer in your band just leaves and like you're in this like touring band. And it's like, oh, you went home, but there's this giant mound of diarrhea all over the floor. But that's what the show is like. It's like going into full details of stories like that, like self-effacing, funny, irreverent. Off the cuff generally, like, there's not a lot of planned conversation, which I like.
Yeah.
I like the Super.
That's the best. That's the best kind of thing.
It's the best.
I mean, I fell into the trap.
It is the best. Like I want to talk to everybody like we're literally hanging out together, like
sure.
like with the purpose. And that's the way I'm always going to do it. I don't know how successful or unsuccessful it's going to be, but it's only been like 8 shows, but it's a long way to go. But if I hope people like it, I encourage people at least to give it a chance. And I'm always telling people too, if you don't like it, tell me what you don't like about it. Like I'm not made of glass. I'm totally, if you're like, hey, you talk about your ass too much, which I don't, but I'm saying if you said that, like tell the diarrhea story again, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's for people that really, I think, just want to laugh, that are really having a tough time. We're all kind of having a very tough time. And, audience-less wrestling to talk about for 5 hours a week. Can't do it. I just can't. How do you guys feel about audience-less wrestling for the most part?
About wrestling in general? Or...
Audience-less wrestling.
Oh, look, I'll be honest, John. I don't watch Raw or SmackDown. I only watch highlights, and I fast forward through most of the highlights. Like you said before, I listen to podcasts and I get a lot of my information from there. I'll check out the pay-per-views mostly, but yeah, watching weekly wrestling now, it's going to be. I haven't done that in 10 years, maybe. Watch the full episode of Raw.
I'm the same with Raw and SmackDown. I'll watch the highlights, but I'll skip the highlights. So I can get through a Raw in about 5 minutes, if that.
Oh my god!
I'll watch NXT.
It's just.
I'll watch Dynamite, but I can skip through NXT. I'll try and watch Dynamite. I don't watch much New Japan anymore, and I try and watch a bit of the American Indies because I've always loved that.
What about NXT UK?
NXT, nah.
Yeah, both of you know.
No, I can't. Even before Speaking Out happened, I was starting to fall out of love with British wrestling anyway, just because there's so many not great people in the business over here. But NXT UK just bores me, puts me to sleep. So I don't even skip through that. I just don't watch it.
There's always something very strange as well about wrestlers with English accents trying to deliver an American style promo.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very different experience.
It's really weird. It's just really weird. It's just really strange, And I can't kind of get over I can't get past the weird accents. I mean, I'm from England, but I can't get past the weird accents kind of delivering.
No, I understand. Yeah, well, it's in the style. It's in the style of a Western style. Yeah. It's odd. What do you guys feel like? And Joey used to talk about this years ago, but Do you guys think NXT ruined UK wrestling?
No, personally, I thought it did us a lot of favors. We had a really good wrestling scene, but it was the promoters themselves that ruined it. It wasn't NXT UK. All they did was add name value to some of the guys, because some of the guys were wrestling for NXT UK, but they could still wrestle over here as well.
Right.
So they were just bringing name value to these promotions. But there were so many companies that closed down just by being untrustworthy or not paying the wrestlers. So these companies were closing down, but everyone was blaming NXT UK,
Right.
which really hadn't done anything really, apart from have a positive effect, in my opinion. But now all these companies were closing down. They're like, oh no, it's NXT UK's fault, when it wasn't. And I feel like they got a really bad rap for it.
Wow. That's why I'm glad I asked you guys this, because I never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, we lost. There was a month where I think about 5 promotions closed down, and it was due to them either not paying the wrestlers, or just being untrustworthy, or being unprofessional. And I was like, well, they were going to close down anyway, regardless of whether NXT UK was around.
Yeah.
So
it's just an excuse.
People just trying to blame WE for something again when it's not actually their fault this time.
Wow, I'm glad I asked that, because I kind of lived under that assumption without the information. You know what I mean? And obviously we have a big UK following for the soup. We had a huge UK following, but no one's ever really said that. It was just always like they came in here, they folded up. What was the big company that they merged with essentially? Not Beyond.
Progress.
Well, Progress. Thank you. I always confuse it with Beyond for some reason. And like they basically farmed Progress into NXT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird animal. I mean, it's just so crazy, because wrestling is really kind of in bad shape anyway. And COVID, I think, really exposed how bad shape it is. Like this ratings war that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? I'm sure you guys talk about that. Like, to me, it's the worst war I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's like this is not even close to a war. There are people literally doing anything but watching these shows.
Yeah, is it really a war if you've got the same 1.7 million people, the same pool of people every week tuning into either one or the other shows?
Yeah, it's like your ugly friend who bangs 3 different ugly chicks every week and thinks he's a stud. You're banging the same 3 pigs every week.
Exactly.
Like, I don't really care.
And
you're not a pimp.
Some of them as
well. You're
well.
not a pimp if you bang the same 3 pigs every week. That's not a pimp.
Come to me when you've got 10, 20.
Yeah, show me. Yeah, even if it's 10 pigs. I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, or whatever we call them across the pond, birds. Show me 10 birds. Show me 10 birds. But I'm just saying, like you get into these arguments with people over which less popular thing is more popular.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Did you see some of the ratings for other things in the States?
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd. Like that South Park episode like a month ago. Oh my God. Like, you'd have to combine NXT and AEW Dynamite 7 times to get that 1 hour that South Park got. They better hope South Park doesn't go to 8 a.m. in the East Coast here. That would destroy those shows.
Yeah.
That would be. And they're helped by lack of sports. There was very little sports here. Sports were abbreviated and broken down. So it's just like, I can't understand. Like, you're fighting over whether the 687,000 who watch this show, but the 870 watch this. And I'm like, there's a grocery game show that's doing 1.4 million.
What really gets me is when you've got like Dave Meltzer breaking it down hour by hour, saying, oh, well, this segment brought in 15,000 more viewers. And it's like, no, that segment didn't bring in anybody. It was just people flicking the channel and decided, fuck it, I'll stay on this one. Like, or, nothing draws anymore. It's not like somebody's going, oh, change the channel. Cody Rhodes is complaining about something. I don't know what happens on Dynamite.
Jericho's doing a dance number.
Yeah, exactly. change the channel.
Oh, back in the day when they spoiled the Mankind winning the title, and then millions of people
guys, millions. There was like 1.7 million people changed the channel. That's power. That's
like the ratings huge. The ratings war now, it's like all I see is like the difference of about 30 or 40,000 people between the 2 promotions, and I'm like, well, who cares? Like 30, you got 30,000 more people watching your show this week.
Well, I can tell you my theory behind that if you're interested. But and we probably touched on this in the show. basically AEW, all people that only follow indies decided that AEW was like a big indie to them, and they were going to watch it like the way they follow the indies.
Yeah.
And because it's nice that they have the YouTube channel with the Bucks and all that stuff, but the reality is they did not cater to make new fans. They did not cater to create, hey, I used to watch Raw back in the day, and I watched WCW. Do you think I'd like this show? How old are you? 44. Nah, get out of here. We don't want you over here. We don't want
Yeah.
you to watch this show. But if you're some like 29-year-old who thinks the Young Bucks are like Jesus and Jesus Part 2, like just running through the world, super kicking their way into fame and fortune, or you think Cody is actually wrestling Jesus, Cody is the greatest thing. It's like the idea should be, just as somebody who works in like music or who's worked in like comedy or whatever, the idea is that you get people that used to want to like this but think it sucks now.
Yeah.
Not cater to the same 40, like you said, 40,000 people separates them. Those are the 40,000 people that only watch the indies, probably. That's the thing that separates them. Like the idea was to take a friend of yours and go, hey, friend of mine at the pub, I know you haven't watched wrestling in a long time, but check this thing out. I think you might like this guy. He had a really good match on TV. And then he watches and goes, shit, I'd like to watch that guy. That's what CM Punk did with the pipe bomb, which nobody acknowledges, by the way. When was the last time you heard anybody go, because that's what happened to me. That's how I came back. I came back because of CM Punk. I fell back.
That's exactly same here. Absolutely. I
who says that? No one ever says that. Do you ever hear anybody talk about that? Never.
No. Well, it's funny you say that because I did exactly the same thing. I dipped out of wrestling in 2005, and CM Punk got me back in 2011.
Almost identical to me. Almost identical.
For me, he harkened back to more the Attitude Era, which was my favorite era. I was 16, 17, 18 when the Attitude Era was kicking off. So it was my favorite period of wrestling, and he kind of reminded me of that old school, if you will. And got me back in.
I literally went from not watching to my brother going, I think you're going to want to watch this. Trust me, CM Punk is killing it. And I was like, all right, well, I've been with my ex-girlfriend. I remember we watching it. And I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. Yeah. And then like that was the build up to the Cena thing in Chicago. I was like, I remember that night going, I think I want to order this pay-per-view. I don't know. I might pay $50 to watch this. I really want to see that crowd when CM Punk comes out. And I was so angry that I didn't do it because I was like, I was ordering UFC so much. I was spending so much money on things. But I remember agonizing going, I think maybe I should order this pay-per-view for $55 just to see CM Punk beat John Cena. Like, I was like, this is going to be the great. And I'm a lapsed fan.
Yeah, that's a draw. Like that's when you can actually say that person drew that person to watching.
Right.
When you've got 40,000 people dipping between the same like the only two options they've got, then I don't think that's you're not moving the needle. Nothing's really changing, and
no. AEW is comfortable with the internet telling them that they're great. And they're comfortable with 25 to 35-year-old people saying you're better than WWE. Well, you probably are, and you're not terrible, but shouldn't you be going after the people outside of this, youth culture demo? But the thing is, they know when they do that, they can't have this. They can't. I'm going to be 50. So I am out of that 35 to 49 demo. Like I'm angling. I'm going to be in the 50 to 50, whatever the hell they call it, the almost dead demo. I don't know what the fuck they call it, senior citizen demo. But if I stop watching, and my buying power is a lot better than a 25-year-old's, I can tell you that. Let's cut the shit with that because that's a big myth. The problem is these people, they didn't go after the lapsed fans. Yeah, they didn't go after the lapsed fans. Like one of my favorite bands is the Deftones. I know people that don't like the Deftones. You know what I told them? Hey, I know you don't like the Deftones, but this new album, I think you might like this record. Well, why won't I like it? Well, I think you might like it because it's this, 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 and this. I didn't just go, well, I guess you're never going to listen to the Deftones, but I am. It's like, no, when something's good and you like it, you want to call people and go, yo, you got to check this out. This is really good. AEW's not really doing that. They're preaching to the converted on a weekly basis.
They're happy with the inside jokes.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. You nailed it. They're happy with, like, I remember I started watching the show and I go, who the fuck is this guy? Or what's this joke? Oh, you don't follow the YouTube channel. I go, well, I'm a grown up. I don't follow a bunch of guys with ponytails, 5'7" guys with ponytails who think Obama is a Muslim terrorist, but pretend that they don't because now it's socially acceptable. And like, I don't think they're funny. Like, I'm supposed to think like this is funny. Like, but what if you don't think it's funny? You can't watch the TV show because you don't follow the internet show?
Yeah.
Shouldn't the TV show be the fucking priority? That's the thing that is. Do you know how many people? Do you know how many people could watch a television show in the States, globally, if they wanted to? Look at the Super Bowl. That's the power that any one of those shows could have.
Sure.
But they piss it away because 150,000. How many people are on that YouTube's Young Bucks channel? Do you think?
I think they've got a couple of 100,000 subscribers.
But okay, but like Justin Bieber's probably got 4 million Twitter followers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. You're talking about, like, generationally, you're talking to people who don't understand the power, the buying power of a demographic that they don't seem to think. And I do. Part of me does think it's because they know that they're putting on cookie cutter shit a lot of the times. So they know, like my brother-in-law, who's a huge wrestling fan, who's a lot younger than me. He's 35. I'm 49. He was so excited about AEW because he literally thought this was going to be his Nitro. Like when he was. Like, that's what he thought. He was like, "Oh, this is going to be like a millennial Nitro. This is for the millennial Nitro." And then after the first couple of weeks and the first couple of months, he's kind of like this wasn't that. You know, it's all right. Like, you know, it's not must see TV a year later for him anymore. Like the first time he saw Orange Cassidy, he goes, "This is amazing. I'm going to make my wife watch it." Like, you know, and then, you know, it's not really that funny anymore, right? Like, is it really that interesting to you? I mean. Is it still funny? I don't think it's that funny. Is MJF still funny? Is it really that funny? I don't think it's that funny. I mean, it's okay. So that's what I think's happening. I think they're just going, well, we don't want you anyway. I'm like, well, you should want me. I've been watching wrestling since 1979, and I know a lot more than you, and my buying power is probably a lot better than the audience you're going for.
Yeah.
And by the way, these young people tend to dip in and out of trends. So it's just like, I like, if they're going for like a 25-year-old audience, how many things do you really like that you liked when you were 25?
Probably just wrestling.
Maybe that's it, right? But that's holding on. But you guys literally have a podcast, and you're telling me you watch Raw via fast forward in a 5-minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So probably nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I gave AEW a hard time for reasons prior before it was AEW, because they did do a lot of misleading things and they did do a lot of shady shit. But I'm thinking now, year in, maybe start being a wrestling company now. Maybe stop focusing on all these people, stop giving people all these contracts, like stop shoving things down people's throats. You know, it was supposed to be this all-inclusive, company, and it's not even by any stretch of the imagination is it an all-inclusive company. Which that's not my hill to die on, but I want to watch good matches. I want to see good people on TV. I'm not seeing that a lot in any of the shows, so I don't care about it as much. I would like to go back to thinking NXT was the best shit in the world. It's pretty terrible now. Every week I'm talking shit about NXT. It's terrible. I don't know what happened. It's like SmackDown Light or something. It's very everybody's small. Everybody looks like they work in J Crew, and like none of them look like pro athletes to me. I talked about this, I think, on the Soup, but when I was in Chicago for the C2E2, which is their version of Comic-Con, I was maybe 5 feet away from the majority of the AEW roster because they were doing appearances, and the company didn't even start yet. And I couldn't believe how they just weren't like impressive people to be like. They just looked like little dudes, like the Young Bucks, the ponytails, and they're 5'7", and they're not really in the greatest shape. They're just not. And I'm just like, wow, like when I was a kid, like when I was near a wrestler, like you knew you were near a wrestler. It's not even a size thing. It's just this whole thing where it's like anybody could do it now. So it's just like, there's no cachet to it. You know what I mean? Like I want my wrestler. I want to look at a guy and go, yeah, that's a wrestler. Just like I want to look at it and go, yeah, that's a rock star. I want to be, or if I see somebody talk within 30 seconds ago, that's a comedian. That's probably a comedian. You know what I mean? Like, I want that. I don't want to have to, like, if the Young Bucks came into your job, would you know they were wrestlers? Like, would you?
No.
Would you think they were pro wrestling? Like, would you think Joey Janela is a pro wrestler?
No.
Like, really?
I can't. Yeah.
No.
Would you think Orange Cassidy? I mean, like,
this is the problem.
I agree with Jim Cornette a lot on this. I get a lot of hate for agreeing with Jim Cornette, but
tell me
he has a lot of great points about stuff like that. And I like AEW. I want them to succeed, but Jim speaks a lot of truth.
Well, they don't want to get out of their own way. I think that's a big thing. Like, they don't want to admit that they do shitty things. They don't want to admit, like, this segment tonight with the town hall with Jericho and MJF, that is so Bush WWE. Like, the dance number was very much like the Slammies. I'm like, do something different. Like, I don't know, like, maybe just have good quality matches and cut some promos and stop focusing on the same 7 or 8 people all the time. And I don't know, you have a nice roster. You have your women's division is disgusting. I mean, it's just disgraceful.
Mm-hmm.
Tag team division's very entertaining. It's got great guys.
Yeah.
You know, tag team division's fine. I don't like how Moxley just wrestles like once a month and acts like he's killing himself. It's just like, come on, dude, like, you're not killing yourself. Yeah, he's a lot of guys phoning it in, and we talked about this like in the soup. I think this year was a lot of guys' physicality, like physically, like Luke Harper. Look at his arm, like he doesn't look like Luke Harper anymore. Like this is your job. Like, I don't know, like just make it your fucking job. I'm not talking about height either. I don't want to make it seem like everything's height. Like, you could be short, like you could just be a wrestler. Like, don't be a YouTube star. You know what I mean? I think that's the problem.
If you're earning 6 figures a year, then like you should really be spending at least 4 hours a day in the gym. You know, you should be kind of spending half your day working out. You know, so
yeah,
you know, if you're getting like that kind of money.
We talked about this like a bunch of years ago. Chris Hero, you guys obviously know Chris Hero, but Chris Hero, when he first came and then he left. He was like mad he had to go to the gym every day, and it was just like, well, we're paying you like 40-50 grand, which, by the way, not the best money, but for indie guys to get that paycheck, and all we want you to do is like, don't get me wrong, I know a little bit about what goes on over there, but I don't want to blow anybody up because I don't want to expose anybody, but like, some of the training is a bit ridiculous. It's a little silly. It's very juvenile, like the way they make people do things every day or like roll. And it's like, yeah, I've been wrestling for 11 years. I'm not going to roll for 45 minutes. Like, I'm just not doing that. But they make you do it. But in their mind, they're like, well, look, we're paying you. This is your job. You know what I mean? We're paying you. AEW, they have a weekly TV show, 1 pay-per-view a month. Sometimes guys aren't on the actual shows. And you could tell physically, guys don't look like they're really pumping out. Like, Cody looks great, but Cody's making fucking like $1 million a year. You know what I mean? Like, to look like that. Luke Harper looks like he stopped working out. Jericho, I mean, do we even have to have that conversation? I mean, and I like these guys. I'm not shitting on these people. I'm just saying that, like, if my job was to talk every day, and by the 3rd or 4th day in the week, you're like, man, by Wednesdays, these shows just get really shitty, don't they? Like, he seems like he's just kind of done. You know what I mean? You'd probably be pissed because, like, hey, you're supposed to do this every day, right? This is your job. Like, we're listening to you, we're paying, whatever. So it's just like, I don't understand why AEW doesn't crack down on this, just the monotony of, like, maybe make guys carry themselves a little better. I don't know. And the way some of them act on Twitter is just, oh my God, like, you need it. You know what? I wasn't one of these people when WWE took all these things away from people that was like, oh, that's terrible, that's mean. No, like, I'm paying you a fucking job. You can't say what you want and work in a Wendy's. Like, you can't.
It has to apply to wrestling as well.
Yeah, like no one at Wendy's is allowed to go on the and start talking about minorities in an inflammatory way or the gays. Like, you will get fucking fired from Wendy's. So it's just like, so let's apply that across the board on both sides of the conversation. Yeah. Don't shit on fans. Don't say crazy things. Like, don't play politics. Just be the character that you're supposed to be, or don't be the character and maybe not be doing on social media. I always said you should have 2 social media accounts: the character name and then your real name. The real name's for your family and your real friends, and the character name's for your character.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
What's so hard about
less issues? Yeah.
Why is that hard? Like, the Jacksons aren't even the Jacksons. That's not even their real fucking name. Have the one for the Young Bucks, and then have the one for your real names, for your real family and your real friends. This is not hard, guys. Like, this is kind of an easy thing to police. That's all. Do that with Maya Yim if you have to. Like, do that with anybody in the business, because I'm sorry. I think Twitter really hurt the wrestling business. And I think when we're all dead and in our graves, you don't think so? I think
No, I
Twitter.
agree. No, I agree.
I think
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah,
I
that
think
is.
Twitter destroyed the wrestling business because you had
Yeah.
people using it as political platforms, using it as like to get into arguments with people. Like I don't have anything against Mia Yim or Jordan Grace. I don't. I really don't. But I have I have an issue with the people that pay their salaries that don't reel them in on social media.
Mm.
Like not Mia. Mia's not as bad as Jordan. Jordan's terrible. Some of the Impact should tell Jordan, like, cut the shit. Like you're too much with the social media. Like the same thing with Lana and some of these other people, or like with Paige and the video games. It's like I get it. You're a young person. You're using this medium, but you're a character on a scripted TV show. Like
Mhm.
you shouldn't have to have a fight with somebody about trans rights. Like break character. Like it's not. Like be the character on the TV show and then use your real name, Trisha Harker or whatever her name is, and then have that platform. That's not.
I always thought it was strange when like a heel character is doing dastardly things on Raw or what have you, and then their social media, the Twitter, they're like doing Make-A-Wish for kids and stuff like that, which is wonderful, which is obviously wonderful, but it just
weird.
You're a heel, like it's just just do it privately, don't stick it on your social media, do it privately,
It's very. And by the way, if we were all given this opportunity and made this kind of money and be on television, I'm fairly sure we would give up the sacrifice of not being able to tweet. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
if they came to you tomorrow, both of you said, "Hey, you could do commentary for a web show or whatever, but here's the thing: you got to get rid of your social media, and you can." Okay, fine.
Gone.
And people have asked me that for the past 2 years, like, "Oh, would you ever take a job?" I go, "Absolutely, I'd take a job." And I was like, I would, because that, but when it becomes a job, that's very different. This is a vocation. This isn't a vocation. This is for fun. So because it's for fun, I shouldn't have personal responsibilities that somebody that does it as a living does. I find it very uncomfortable the way some of these guys act on social media, and it's not because they're taking up social causes. It's just the berating of people. Like it's really the way they talk to fans, like that they don't agree with. That really gets under my skin. Because here's somebody with like 50,000 followers who's on TV show yelling at some dummy, some incel guy who, granted he's an asshole, whatever, but his life, this is all he has. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have a TV show, you have a contract.
A little while back, didn't Baron Corbin go after Joey Numbers? He scrolled through his social media and took a picture of him and was posted that on his Twitter.
Yeah,
and
Bubba Ray did that to me, and Bubba Ray did that to me, and it's just like
right.
And people were like Bubba Ray's a piece of shit, but Baron is a young guy. Like he should know that. Like he should be like, hey, look, I'm not gonna fuck up my job by getting into a pissing contest with a guy on the internet. My job should be more than that, right? Like I wouldn't do. Would you ruin your own job to be right on the internet? You know what I mean? Like really? No. Like you know what I mean? Like yeah, like it's that important to you. So I think that's an aspect. I think all the industry has a huge problem with social media. They don't know how to use it properly. They use it very poorly for the most cases. And I think if they took a step back and maybe made that like a thing where they cleaned it up and just basically told people, look, you can't, Joey Janela can't, get into fights with people on social media like this. He's on a TV show. He's getting paid a lot of money. You can't act that way. Sorry. If it's a problem for you, don't work. And I would be like, look, it's a problem for you. Do you want to go live at your house and fight with people on the internet, or do you want to come to TV this week? What do you want to do?
I could not agree more. Honestly, could not agree more. And this is actually, I think we're actually just getting to the good part that like this is a really good conversation, which I feel like not many people have about wrestling in general. Like the mentality of the fans, the wrestlers, social media. It's something I could talk about for a long time because half of what we discuss at the pub or just in general when we're together is wrestling fans and wrestlers and how they act on social media because it like you said, it'll be the death of wrestling. And
it will be. I'm telling you guys right now, and remember we had this conversation in years to come. This is what's going to put it in the grave forever.
It's on life support at the moment.
Yeah, it's on life support. And COVID combined with this the failure to adapt social media. You know what I mean? Like, and by the way, I don't know if you guys seen it. I don't know if you follow how many Western sports you follow, but there's been people like in football and in baseball and in basketball who've gotten in a lot of trouble for behaving that way.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble. Lost contracts. Some people lost actual contracts, like they were gone. They were traded. because of the way they acted on social media. The stakes are a lot higher for those guys. They're making a lot more money. They're a lot more visible, but which also means that the stakes are way higher. I can't imagine if I was some indie guy making like $1,000, a month killing myself, with thumbtacks. And now I'm getting guaranteed contract to do this weekly TV show. And I'm still behaving like a guy who's making $1,000, on thumbtacks. No, you have to move with the times. You can't pretend that, Baron Corbin cursing people out on social media is okay. It's not. He's not. He's a TV star. Whether we like him or not, he's a TV star. It's not acceptable. Can you imagine if you watch like Walking Dead and the guy from Walking Dead told you to go fuck yourself on social media? I mean, or made fun of your physical appearance?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you really think that's going to fly? You really think the people that pay that salary, do you think the people produce that TV show are going to be, oh, that's totally okay. That's fine. No, absolutely. No. But the thing is, you don't see the guy from Walking Dead making fun of somebody's physical appearance, because those people know what's up. They know they know their value. Like they know that, this is a lucky spot. And I don't know if it's a generational thing. And I'm like you guys, I know you guys like Cornette like me, but I don't like a lot of stuff Cornette says. I get a little, but I think sometimes Cornette needs an editor, right? I mean, he needs a filter. He needs an editor sometimes. The same thing we like about him is the same thing we probably don't like about him.
Yeah.
But I think Twitter in particular might be one of the, the four, when we have like the 4 stages of grief or whatever, the stages of grief, the stages of the end of wrestling, Twitter is going to be one of those stages. I guarantee you. Twitter,
no doubt in my mind, Twitter will finish off wrestling. John, it would actually be good to get you on to discuss this as like a special episode at some point down the line. Like,
sure.
If we could get you on and just discuss this as a subject for a standalone episode.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you guys want to play that, I would love to.
I'm really enjoying talking about this.
Yeah.
But it would be really good to do that. Obviously, if you're coming back on.
Yeah, I would love to come back. Absolutely. Yeah. Have me back. But you actually have to listen to my show though, otherwise I'm not.
Well, I've subscried to Break the Apocalypse.
Not you, Rivers. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
I got your back, man. I got you. I'm your boy.
And where's what about who's missing? Jamie?
Jamie, yeah, Jamie.
All right. Well, Jamie has to listen to at least one episode.
He's actually just messaged me now. I think the message is going to be, how did the interview go? So I'm going to say, John.
Tell Jamie it was great because he wasn't here.
Yeah. I'll make sure he listens to it. But
yeah, we'll figure something out. Absolutely. I would love to.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
It would be a cool thing to do. Maybe like right after, because it's so close to like the holidays. So like literally like maybe right at the end of the year kind of thing. Just like, what do we think 2021 is going to be like?
Let's do that.
That sounds like a great idea. I would love to do that.
I would love
to do 2021.
Yeah, 2021. Like a blow up, like what do we really truly think is going to happen? Because I honestly think it's going to be pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I don't know, like geographically speaking, how things are going for you guys. Because
it's not great.
It's not great. It's not great.
I've got like, I mean, this is a first world problem, but I've got tickets for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds booked next year in May. And I'm worried because I was supposed to see him this May, so they postponed it to the following May. So I'm hoping that doesn't get cancelled, but I'm thinking that it just might, it might, because it's not that far off now, really, in the scheme of things. It's not that far off.
He was coming. He was playing here too. That was a world tour he was doing. So he was playing in New York. He was playing Brooklyn. He was playing the Barclays Center. My brother was going. I live pretty far away. I would love to do that. I would love to just do like a projection, because I don't think anything's going to be any different between now and the end of the year, because it's not really that much time. But I think the expectations will be different. I definitely think people are starting to have a come to Jesus moment and going, okay, so I don't think next year it's going to be that great. Whereas 6 months ago we were like 2021, we're going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
It is now looking like 2022 might be a bit better.
No, it is. It is. It's a joke, but we're not really joking, right? I mean, we're being serious.
But we'll get Jamie on for that one. We'll have me, you, Jamie, and Rivers, and we'll discuss how bad 2020 was. Not just with wrestling, but with everything in between.
Yeah, we'll throw wrestling in there, definitely, because I think it's a huge part of it. I think it's one of the things, I don't know if you guys are comic book savvy. I mean, I don't know, but printed books might be gone. I mean, printed, like And I owned a comic book store. I grew up on printed books. We all grew up with printed books.
Right on.
The thought of that just being like, bye, it's over. No, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
how is that? Really? Like, they're not, like, there's no printed books. Like, I don't understand. So it's like, I worry about that, you know, and I worry about the concerts. I have so many
Makes me
friends.
sad. I mean,
Does
I
make me sad.
bowed out of collecting comic books in 2012. I used to collect comic books from 1989 right through to 2012, and then I kind of just stopped, you know. So I bowed out about 8 years ago. But yeah, it's kind of like, it does make me kind of sad to think that one day there's not going to be such a thing as a comic book shop. You know, you just kind of, you know, that kind of, that feeling. You walked into a comic book shop and you could smell the ink off the paper. You know, that kind of. I'm going to miss that. I'll really miss that. You know?
I remember the smell of the bags, like the bags on the boards, like, you know, like take them out. It's like, you know, that plastic smell, or the shrink wrapped book. Like, you just got a hard copy, like hardcover book. You know, it's scary. It's very scary. And, you know, it's not a local problem. You know, it's not a problem where you live, and not a problem. It's a global problem. Like, it's a global issue. So yeah, let's plan on doing that. I think that'd be an awesome, fun thing, man.
I would love to, because I feel like I said, we're an hour and 20 into it now, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface, which is great. So, but that's why
we'll definitely have a lot to come back to. I assure you, we'll have a lot to come back.
So let's do that. But John, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. We usually do about a half an hour episode, but we've gone an hour and 20.
That's just not possible. I'm sorry.
Pretty easy. So let's do it again down the line. Let's
we'll set that thing up. I'd love to do that up to the 2021.
But make sure.
Absolute pleasure meeting you, John. I'm a big fan. Absolute pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it.
Check out Break the Apocalypse on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and I'll be doing that tonight. I'll listen to the first 2 episodes. And John, thank you so much for joining us. Rivers, thank you for making your debut on Ringsiders. It's been a pleasure having you too. I've been Callum. We'll speak to you next time.
All right, and Jamie, you missed out. What can I tell you? All right, boys. I'll talk to you soon.